Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 427 of the BoxHard Podcast, aka the Christmas Special 2023 edition. Wow, I cannot believe how quick this year has gone, but we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas before we get into it. And also a very Merry Christmas to my counterpart, the co-host himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, sir? And a Merry Christmas in advance.
Thanks, man. Have Merry Christmas to you, and I'm doing great. You know, I'm always doing good when I'm talking to my man, Joey.
Feels good to hear that back. This Christmas special is going to be a little bit different from other years. I mean, there's other Christmas specials that we've done over the years, and there's not really any boxing around the festive period. So it's usually just, you know, we're getting weird kind of unusual guests on the show, guests that you wouldn't expect to be on. But yeah, this time obviously there's fights last week, there's fights this week, so it's pretty much any other week in the whole calendar year. In fact, some of the fights are probably better than we're used to getting at any point in the year, let alone this kind of time of the year. So it's going to feel like a normal show, but we're going to try our best to fly through part one, and we do have a very unusual guest, as always. That is the promise every Christmas, and this week's guest is former WBO Welterweight World Champion, Mr. Jeff Horn. We'll get to him after part one, but let's start with the review part, just as every week, and we're going to start here last Thursday at the Hangar in Costa Mesa, California, USA. Obviously, it was live on Fight TV. Very hard to find a stream for this one, but I actually stayed up, so no one at all this week can call me a casual boxing fan. I was up till 7 a.m. without sleeping just to watch the main event go the distance. Let's get straight to that main event, by the way. Kubrat Pulev, now 30-3. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Andre Warzik. A real shock, because I thought this would only go a couple of rounds. I know that Pulev's not really like a massive knockout guy. He's more of a boxer than a puncher and the rest of it. But as I was saying, this guy, Andre Warzik of Poland, he'd been out the ring at one point for 7 years. He came back, I think, in the latter part of last year, so 2022, came back and got knocked out in 2 rounds by a guy who was 3-4 with 2 draws. And then his other fight after that, he knocked a guy out in 1 round. So he'd only done 3 rounds of boxing in 7 years. And he's getting in with Pulev, who, I think is about 42 years of age now. He's actually, I believe, the older man by some distance. But, he's been out the game for such a long time. Pulev, for me, in some mad way, would have been, I don't want to say too fresh, but too active, for Warzik. But unbelievably, he completely shut him out, and it went the distance somehow. Also on that card, Egis Kavalauskas with a win. The Mean Machine now 24-2 with a draw. A knockout for him in round 3 against Jose Marufo, who's now 14-13 with 2 draws. No messing around there from the Mean Machine. And then last but not least on that card, the brother of Kubrat, Tervel Pulev, now 18-1, a unanimous decision against Leonardo Minor, who's now 7-4 with 2 draws. Still never been stopped in his 4 losses. I thought that perhaps Pulev would be able to stop him, but no, both Pulevs go the distance. Moving now to Friday, last Friday, got to cast my memory back a little bit here because it seems so long ago. It's only, 6 days from today, Friday. And it just seems like such a long time ago. So much has happened, I guess, in that time with Christmas building up and all the rest of it. But yeah, this one went down at the Estadio Luna Park in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The return to the ring for Gustavo Lemos. He hadn't boxed since stopping and retiring Lee Selby. Lee Selby had gone away, become a trainer, I think maybe bought his own gym. Lemos hadn't done anything, but he's back here with a bang, a first-round TKO against Javier Clavero, who's now 30-11 with 2 draws, so Gustavo Daniel Lemos still undefeated, 29-0. Moving now to the Star in Sydney, in New South Wales, Australia. Over here, Sam Goodman with a win. He's now 17-0, a unanimous decision against that undefeated Chinaman Zhong Lu, who's now 19-1 over 12 rounds there at Super Bantam. A good win there for Goodman. Also on that card as well, Liam Wilson with the unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Jackson John England, who's now 15-3. Liam Wilson now 13-2. I'm sure he'll be looking to get straight back to world level. Moving now, again, this one was last Friday, the 15th, at the Carib Royale Orlando in Florida, USA. I'm going to come to you in a sec, Eddie, but keep it real brief if you can. On the undercard, Yoenis Tellez, the Cuban, now 7-0 with 6 KOs. He got in there with a fellow Cuban, Livan Navarro, who is now 15-2. I wasn't that impressed with Tellez, to be honest with you. Early on, he kind of came in, as he does, tries to, finish his opponent early, as he normally does. But he actually got hurt a couple times in there, Tellez, by Navarro, and I wasn't that impressed at all. I think he tried to rush his work at times. He tried to load up when he didn't need to, and just got caught so many times in between combinations. Navarro, at times, was kind of old man in him, if you like. But yeah, Tellez in the end did get the knockout finally in the 10th and final round, and it was a good knockout, by the way. So he's now 7-0, again with 6 KOs. Also on the card, friend of the show, Shadeja Green, lost her She's now 13-1. She lost to another friend of the show, Franchon Cruz de Zern. Happy for her. She's now 9-2. She was a massive, massive underdog. She's upset the odds there, and she's become the new WBA interim and WBC World Super Middleweight Champion. 10 2-minute rounds, unanimous decision for de Zern. I said on last week's show, I think the fight's going to go the distance. That's what I said. I said I don't think Shadeja's going to go in there and blast out Franchon Cruz. And the reason I didn't say Shadeja Green to win on points is because I thought that there's a chance this could happen for Franchon Cruz to win the fight. So I just said the fight to go the distance. And that is what happened here. But de Zern with the win. Shadeja Green was so heavily favoured. And also, her promoter Jake Paul, we'll get to his fight in a minute, but obviously his plan was for Shadeja Green, he signed Shadeja to his promotional company, MVP, with massive plans, and she's lost her there, which was very unexpected. So hopefully, he still does something nice with her. He seems to kind of be, getting into this promotional game, at least with the fighters' interests at heart, it would appear. But yeah, moving to that main event, we just spoke about him there. Jake Paul now 8-1. The one lost to Tommy Fury. A KO for him in the first round against Andre August, who's now 10-2 with a draw. We didn't know much about Andre August going in, Eddie. I don't think we know too much about him even now, but Jake Paul with the first round knockout, and it was an unbelievable uppercut. I've got to take my hat off to Jake Paul. I'm sure you saw the clip. Jake Paul to get the stoppage in the first, I think, 4 rounds. I'm pretty sure was like 4-1. I can't remember now. I bet on that, by the way. But the first round the price of that would have been crazy. But 4-1 for the first 4 rounds was a nice, easy win when he got it in the first round. What a shot. Did you see it? I'm guessing you did.
Absolutely seen it. It was crazy. It wasn't, and you know what? It looked legit, like something he worked on or something he's done. You know what I mean? It's like you look at a pro. That was a pro move. You know what I mean? I got to give it to him. And it just proves that, and then he was in there with a guy who, would, except Tommy Fury, who's been more of a boxer than anybody else he's faced. You understand what I'm saying? So for him to do that in a situation like that, with it being in the first 3 minutes of a fight, is somewhat impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong. It would have been even more impressive if it would have been a few rounds in, and he would have been dominating the fight skill-wise and would have been able to show off some of the things he can do. But hey, you don't get paid for overtime, so go in there and get it done as quick as possible, and that's what he did. Got to give Jake Paul credit, man. He's stepping his game up in a lot of ways. He's definitely stepping his game up in a promotional thing too, especially with women's boxing and what I've been seeing lately. So got to get a kid credit, man. He's doing his thing right now.
Absolutely, can't disagree with that. Moving now to the Beacon of Light in Sunderland, Tyne and Wear, United Kingdom. Over here, this one was live on DAZN. Josh Kelly, friend of the show, moved to 15 wins. He's got a loss and a draw. A KO for him in round 3 against Placido Ramirez, now 24-4. Ramirez down and out from another uppercut from a right hand. Again, it was another opponent that we don't know, but Josh Kelly looked good. No messing around. The guy was a pretty big puncher. I think he had about 17 KOs. Again, he hadn't beaten anyone that I recognised on his record at all. I don't know where they plucked him from. I don't really see the point of the fight. I made this clear on last week's show, but Josh Kelly did what he had to do there, and no messing around. I really liked what he was doing in the ring. Obviously, a little bit of his old self with the making the guy miss and the nice footwork and, the odd angles that he finds and stuff. But when it came down to getting him out, he got him out. Great shot. And now moving to the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, USA. The big one, of course. It went down on DAZN. Let's start with the undercard. Fun fight, actually, between Junaid Bostan, who's now 8-0 with 6 KOs. He was in there with Gordy Russ II, who was 6-0 with 6 KOs. Both guys big knockout artists. It ended up going 8 rounds, a unanimous decision for Bostan. So Gordy Russ has lost his O. He's now 6-1. But a really fun fight while it lasted. Bostan was the much better boxer. But boy, oh boy, did he fight quite averagely at times, and, started trading with Gordy Russ when I don't think he needed to. Gordy Russ certainly hurt Bostan a few times, and Gordy Russ, I don't know what the guy's made out of. He's got a granite chin, just kept coming forward. It didn't matter what he got hit with. There was a little bit of a dent starting to get into him about round 8, like the last sort of round he started to wear the shots a bit, but prior to that, nothing could deter him from coming forward. He was taking lots and lots of shots, but like I say, at times, Bostan looked a bit tired, and it was becoming a bit of a dogfight. And when that was happening, Gordy Russ was having a lot of success. So it was a fun fight, but Bostan the clear winner. And I tell you what, another mad fight. I don't know if you saw this, Eddie. If you didn't, then don't come in. If you did, then certainly come in to let me know what you thought. But Peter McGraw of the UK, now 8-1. He loses his O against Jericho O'Quinn, who's now 17-1 with a draw. Peter McGraw, and I don't use this word too often, completely schooled Jericho O'Quinn. Completely schooled him, hit him every time he wanted to hit him, made him miss. He was boxing a perfect fight, had him down in round 2, had him down in round 4. The win was in the bag. Like, already O'Quinn needed a knockout, and he finds it from absolutely nowhere. It was in between McGraw punching, he walks onto a shot, and he was out. I mean, yeah, almost, I guess out cold. I mean, his eyes were open, but he wasn't getting up in 20 seconds, let alone 10. Jericho O'Quinn as well, not noted as a puncher at all. It was just a perfectly timed punch that Peter McGraw walked into, being a bit careless because he was completely dominating O'Quinn. And I think McGraw was starting to put his foot on the gas because he'd already had the guy down in round 2, had the guy down in round 4. Like, the stoppage was imminent, it looked. So he had to put his foot on the gas pedal. If he didn't, we'd all be criticising why didn't he do it. And then he did do it and gets caught with a shot that Jericho O'Quinn, I don't think, could land again in 100 more lifetimes. Unbelievable the way that fight turned round, and I'm hearing people say that it's the maddest turnaround of a fight they've ever seen in their lives. That was how crazy it was. Completely tore up the script there. Credit to Jericho O'Quinn. Just goes to show that, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, you know, just because you're dominating every single second of a fight, one punch can change it all, man. Boy, oh boy, I feel for Peter McGraw. I'm absolutely gutted for him. Yeah, feel for him, man. What a terrible Christmas it's going to be. Wish him all the best with his comeback. We need the rematch now. The only problem is Peter McGraw, he was a good amateur, but he's not really a big name as a pro at all. I don't think he sells too many tickets. I could be completely wrong. But obviously he went on the road here to America. I don't know if they're going to pay Jericho O'Quinn loads of money to come to the UK. It's probably a fight that's only going to happen again in America. And I don't know if he's going to be the top of Eddie Hearn's priority list now for a rematch. I just don't know. So I'm hoping that, you know, somewhere Peter McGraw's doing okay, and hopefully he can redeem himself here. But yeah, it was terrible. Galal Yafai with a win, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. He's now 6-0, like I say, unanimous over 10 against Rocco Santamauro, who's now 22-3. Close and competitive fight. Galal Yafai, again, you know, I think sometimes likes to hold his feet a little bit too long, trade shots, and he ends up taking some hefty shots. And you kind of think to yourself, if this guy, you know, in the opposite corner was more of a puncher, you know, he'd be in some big trouble here. I don't know if Galal Yafai just kind of takes liberties because he knows that the guy isn't as big a puncher. But I mean, look, we just spoke about Jericho O'Quinn, the fight before this. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it really. But for an Olympic gold medalist, I'm expecting him to be a little bit less hittable moving forward. I'm hoping that he can do that. But yeah, he's a good fighter, you know, fundamentally really good. But yeah, I think he's a little bit caught in between styles at the moment. But yeah, Santamauro was a good fighter, good test. That one was a defense of Yafai's WBC International Flyweight title. Also on the card, Murajon Akhmadaliev, now 12-1, a TKO for him in round 8 against the undefeated Kevin Gonzalez, now 26-1 with a draw. That one was an eliminator there for the WBA Super Bantamweight title. All the best to MJ. Kind of had like one off night against Marlon Tapales, and he's kind of been thrown aside a little bit. Good to see him back with a good win there. Some people were actually picking Gonzalez for the upset. Obviously it didn't happen. And then yeah, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, Eddie, I'm going to come to you in a sec, but he's now 19-0, a retirement in the corner after 9 rounds for him against Sonny Edwards of the UK, who now loses his old friend of the show, now 20-1, a unification for the IBF and WBO flyweight world titles. I tell you what, I'm going to run through the rounds. Really, really good fight. You know, you could see from the first round, 2 boxing chess players. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this excited for a flyweight fight. But yeah, I gave the first round to Sonny Edwards. I felt that he was beating Bam Rodriguez to the punch a little bit. Round 2, I gave to Bam Rodriguez. Already, though, in that second round, you could see Sonny's left eye was beginning to swell. He got caught with a big shot, and I thought to myself, it's very early for that to be going on. It made Sonny change stances for a little while as well in that round, which I don't think is a good sign. You get caught with a shot, all of a sudden you switch stances and you move the eye a bit further away from the gloves of the other man. It's not really good when it's not your natural style. I know that Sonny can sort of switch and that, but I think he's much better being orthodox anyway. Yeah, Bam was beginning to find his range better in the second round. Round 3, a really close round. I already felt that Edwards was fighting the wrong fight. He was trying to, you know, stay in the pocket with Rodriguez and trade with him. I gave Sonny that round, but it was close. It could have gone either way. Round 4, I gave to Sonny. So again, it's already looking a bit controversial on my card. 3-1 for Sonny Edwards. A close round though, like I say, the couple of close rounds in there. I felt that Sonny was starting to get his timing going. He was countering Rodriguez, but I knew there's still a long way to go. Round 5 was a really close round, and I have to say, I'd give it to Sonny if I was pushed, but it easily could have gone the other way. So I was starting to already think like, wow, what is the judges scoring this, man? Because it 3 close rounds out of 5, and then 1 was clear for either man, in my opinion. Round 6, that is where the screw started to turn. Massive round for Rodriguez. Momentarily trapped Sonny Edwards on the ropes and just unloaded on him. Rodriguez poked his tongue out. Sonny Edwards came back at him with some big shots himself just to close out the round, but a big Rodriguez round, and the face of Edwards again started to look worse and worse. Round 7, another damaging round for Sonny Edwards. He was taking a lot of punishment there, shipping way too many shots from Bam's gloves. Round 8, yeah, I mean, you know, it was more of the same of the prior rounds. It was like the second half of the fight had just turned into a dogfight. There wasn't too much boxing skill on show. Edwards, like I say, wanted to stand and trade with Rodriguez. Afterwards, he said because Rodriguez's feet were you know, they weren't slow enough for him to box rings around him. I think he should give himself a bit more credit, to be honest. I think if we could see that fight replayed, I'd like to just see Sonny stick to his old style. I don't think he did himself any favours, but I can understand the thinking behind it, and I think Bam was probably always just going to win the fight. But yeah, like I say, round 8, he took another beating, Sonny Edwards, big Rodriguez round, and I wrote here, I don't see it lasting much longer. And then round 9, a crazy round. Bam started well, again, bludgeoning Edwards, but then Edwards was finishing the round really well, and then obviously gets dropped, gets back up, the bell goes back to his corner, has a small conversation with the trainer, Grant Smith, and then Grant Smith stops the fight. Crazy fight. Bam Rodriguez for the stoppage was 5-1. I did go small on that. I thought that was a crazy price. So that was a winner. I know that, Eddie, you needed the final leg of your parlay was for Sonny Edwards to win on points. He would have probably been down, to be honest, even if it did go that far. But really good fight. And you know what? The flyweights don't get enough credit being the little weights. But what we saw already, and I think you'll agree, is a chess match and then a brawl in one fight. We don't often see that.
Yeah, man. I've heard, you know what I mean, a little bit from it. It would have been my first win, honestly, since I've been on this, which is kind of unfortunate. And I like Sonny Edwards. I like what he brings to the table. I like that boxer first mentality. Good technically, good IQ, great IQ actually. Sticking to boxing for the most part. So it's kind of a bit of a surprise to see him trying to trade, but I can understand. You got to sometimes stand up to the guy to be able to get your stuff off, to make him second guess just coming in. So, you know, I understand the sentiment of what he was doing in his thinking. But it's unfortunate that, you know, this kid can punch and he's a great fighter. You know, he can pretty much do either way. You know, he can box. He can also come in and turn the fight up, and actually has the power to get you out of there, which unfortunately Sonny Edwards is not the biggest puncher in boxing. So it's just unfortunate that it had to turn out the way it did. I mean, it would have been great as a distance fight, but you could see as the fight started to get further in, he started taking more damage. And you could tell Bam punches pretty good because you see the damage start to form quick. And, you know, that's just typically a sign of that, you know, when the face can't hold it, or that's a sign of somebody else that's not, you know, doesn't have the cuts real high, like on the game, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's unfortunate that, you know, Sonny had to lose in the way he did. It's unfortunate for me too. It's unfortunate in general, but Bam Rodriguez, like Sonny said, was the better man, and you know, it was always going to be a situation of whose style, I guess, in this. And like I said, they're both, like you said, they're both chess players, but it's whose style. You know what I mean? I think with Bam, being that he can punch or box, he had more wrinkles. You know what I mean? So, you know, when he got where he was able to land a couple big shots, he's able to set up Sonny a little bit better in that regard. He was able to come in, and then it's funny, like we was talking also, he got a little too close and stayed in front of him a little too long. When you're a good boxer like that and you got good range, you got good boxing ability, you typically want to keep the guy turning and have him fight at your pace. But it just turned on his head kind of quick. You know what I mean? And I mean, Sonny Edwards had some rounds in the middle of the fight that were going his way, kind of, but they were close. And anytime rounds like that are close, you can go either way. And then obviously the scorecards can look crazy wide, or they can be close. And then he started to, you know, really start taking a beating later. And then obviously getting stopped. You know, I guess he got stopped in the corner, but it's just unfortunate, man. He's a really good fighter. I want to see him come back, and I'm pretty sure when he does come back, he's going to do pretty well.
all the best to him in 2024. And then moving to the final card to mention, it went down at the Armory in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. Again, I want to come to you, Eddie, if you saw any of this, but Robert the Ghost Guerrero, friend of the show, got in there with Andre Berto, friend of the show. Robert Guerrero with the unanimous decision win over 10 rounds, very much the same as the first fight 11 years ago. Guerrero now 38-6 with a draw. He did say after the fight that, hey, I want a title shot. I want to have another run. I don't know if he was amped up in the moment. I hope he's not serious. But Andre Berto, man, I mean, I see pictures of him at the weigh-in. Like, the shape the guy's in is just unbelievable. I mean, I'm not a fighter, but God almighty, if I was a fighter and I've been out the game for 5 years, I'd want to look exactly like Andre Berto. Honestly, guy's in phenomenal shape, but like I say, too much inactivity. And he's now 32-6, and hopefully we don't see him again. I don't know if you saw any of that, Eddie. If you didn't, that's fine. Moving on, Chris Colbert, I don't know if you saw this, he's now 17-2. It was a rematch between him and Jose Valenzuela, who arguably beat him in the first fight but didn't get the decision. It was a rematch. Valenzuela knocked Colbert down in the first fight, and here knocks him out in round 6, and it was a brutal knockout, I have to say. I thought Colbert could win on points. I thought the fight would probably go the distance. Obviously, Colbert didn't get stopped in the first one, and every time he got hurt, he kind of came back. And early on in the fight, it was like a carbon copy of the first fight, because Valenzuela was having a lot of success, landing big shots, then Colbert would come back. I think Valenzuela nicked a few of the first early rounds, and then Colbert had his moments as well, but then, like I say, gets hit with this shot that just put him face down, and it was a brutal KO. There's a snapshot of Valenzuela just kind of doing like a squat right next to him. The referee's there, and Colbert's out on the floor, and it's quite a cold boxing photo. People are saying, is it the coldest photo of the year? Probably is, but yeah, good for Jose Valenzuela. Quite an honest post-fight interview with him as well in the ring. He said, I don't think that, we should do the third fight. Colbert wanted the third fight. He said it's one apiece, but Valenzuela said, look, I think I won the first fight, and I've completely closed the book now in the second fight. So Chris Colbert finds himself in a difficult position, 17-2. Jose Valenzuela, like I say, now 13-2. All the best to him. And yeah, the main event over here, again, it was a bit of a shame that both the fight cards clashed. Obviously, the Sonny Edwards card and then this David Morrell card. But David Morrell moved to 10-0, as we expected. A knockout against Sena Agbeko of Ghana, now 28-3. A bit of a mismatch, in all honesty. I think it was, you could really see that in the ring. David Morrell, brutal. When he had Agbeko hurt, he just went in for the kill. If my memory serves me right, I think he sort of half dropped him, but then Agbeko sort of bounced back up and took some more shots. It's never really a clever thing. You get out of a knockdown because the referee's kind of not quick getting in there, so you don't get a count, and it doesn't count as a, like a potential 10-8 round because he kind of quickly bounced back up kind of thing, but then also you don't get the vital seconds to recover. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the right fight. But anyway, I did see the finish. I saw Agbeko on the ropes just taking some heavy heavy shots. Credit to him for standing there and taking them, but the referee jumped in and waved it off and did the right thing there for Agbeko's health. So a good win for David Morrell, defense there of his WBA World Super Middleweight title. And that brings the review part to a close. Eddie, did you see any of that in that card just before we bring in Jeff Horn?
No, I didn't even get a chance to see it. I was paying a little bit too much attention to the other fight.
I thought as it was Christmas, you might have watched it, but you've let the listeners down again.
My bad.
Okay,
I'm sorry about that.
Right, here we go. That is the end of the review part. It's now time to welcome this year's Christmas special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO Welterweight champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Jeff Horn. Jeff, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Joey. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So, Jeff, I want to start this interview the same as I do with all my other interviews of this nature. Where did the journey first ever begin for you? What's your earliest memory of first ever lacing up a pair of gloves or going to a boxing gym?
The first ever was going to my trainer's house, which was Glenn Rushton, and it wasn't really a gym that we went to. It was his house, but his house was a massive mansion of a place, and we were thinking, is this where the boxing club is? And we walk up and lo and behold, a light in the corner on the side of the house, and we walk in and there's a heap of people doing martial arts and boxing.
There we go. And also, I should mention as well, you were a late starter to the sport. You got into it, if I'm not mistaken, in the very first place, due to being a victim of bullying, Jeff. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I got in a fair few fights. Well, not a heap of fights, but a couple of fights at school, and I didn't really go too well in those either. And I thought when I started going out to nightclubs and things, that people can be very silly, especially with alcohol. And I was going to learn how to protect myself and my girlfriend at the time. And I went to the nearest martial arts gym to learn some self-defense.
And obviously that snowballed. You, like many other fighters, obviously started off as an amateur. And I'd like to ask this question also. What was your highlight moment of your amateur career? I know you boxed a bunch of great fighters as an amateur, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say favourite memory or highlight moment had to be representing Australia at those 2012 Olympic Games in my hometown of London. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. That was a momentous, I guess, occasion in my career, and it was a highlight. It was definitely the highlight of my amateur career, fighting for my country and doing pretty well at it, but didn't quite get a medal at those Olympics.
Yeah, it was a tough year. You made your pro debut in the end, March the 1st, 2013, a Friday night in Victoria. You boxed a guy by the name of Jody Allen. You won the fight by TKO in round 2. What can you remember of your debut? Do you remember maybe having any nerves?
I can remember being nervous, but I was confident as well because I was an Olympian and I'd done all these things with the amateurs as well. So, but I guess the lesson I learned in that very first fight was how tough the pros were. That's what Jody Allen taught me. I punched him with everything, and somehow the guy just kept on standing, and I didn't know how his lights weren't out. So, yeah, he was incredibly tough, and I was like, okay, now I know that the toughness that some of these pros are going to have.
And I want to get inside my virtual time machine now and jump forward to April 27th, 2016, a Wednesday night in South Brisbane. You were 13-0 with one draw at the time. You boxed former two-weight world champion Randall Bailey. You had him down in the second. He had you down in the third. Ultimately, though, Randall retired on his stool after 7 rounds. We had Randall on the show a couple years ago, and he said, yeah, I pulled myself out. I'd had enough in the corner. It was his final career fight. But talk me through that fight, obviously going down for the first time in your career and just getting in with a former world champion who could punch like crazy, Jeff.
Yeah, look, I'd seen a bit of Randall Bailey, and I guess like when people watch me on footage, I don't look at that superb probably to watch boxing style-wise. We know Devin Haney or Lomachenko or anyone like that, but so I thought I would easily be able to outbox him, but he was just awkward, and yeah, I've used my awkwardness then against him, and was able to. I felt like Randall Bailey's style is quite slow, but he's very articulate with what punches he throws, and he's just watching very carefully for that knockout shot, which is why he's called the Knockout King. And I was able to maintain my rhythm. He did get me in the third round, but I was able to regather back and recover and keep doing what I was doing. And I think the peppering him to the body definitely made Randall Bailey quit on his stool. Well, I shouldn't say quit, retire on his stool because I guess he was just copping too much of those body shots.
You say there that you shouldn't say quit. I gave him a way out when I was interviewing him and we spoke about the fight. I said, your corner pulled you out. He went, no. Correction, I didn't want to carry on. So I think it's clear. The stoppage...
Yeah, but like it's I guess, as a boxer, it's a well-known thing that you don't like saying people quit at something. And I guess he retired on his stool. He knew he wasn't going to get the victory, and he knew he was just going to go through some more punishment. So he did the smart move and to say, I'm not going to get him. I can feel I'm not going to get this guy. I'm just going to pull the pin now.
Absolutely. And that stoppage against Randall Bailey was your first stoppage of a 3-fight stoppage streak. And a fun fact is that the only other time you stopped 3 guys in a row was your first 3 fights as a pro. So, yeah, the first against Randall Bailey, the second against Rico Muller, and the third against Ali Funica. This then leads us beautifully into your next fight. It's a date I'm sure you'll never forget. July the 2nd, 2017. At home in Brisbane, in the opposite corner, stood a man who is the epitome of a boxing legend, Mr. Manny Pacquiao. The fight was for his WBO Welterweight world title. The fight goes 12 rounds. You win unanimously. Talk me through that unbelievable performance and, you know, just how it felt to finally become a world champion against a fighter like Manny.
Yeah. Look, I knew I was the bigger frame going into that boxing fight. I knew I was bigger than Manny Pacquiao. He's a smaller but explosive guy, and I knew what strategy I needed to have to take his advantage away from him. And he was that explosiveness that he has. I was able to smother him and make sure that he didn't have the space to use his powerful legs and shoot at me. So I took care of that, and I just made sure I was super fit and I was able to keep going at Manny Pacquiao, and I had that belief because Glenn taught me to believe in myself. My goal when I very first started was become a world champion, and that was the mega opportunity I got against a superstar like Manny Pacquiao.
I remember watching the fight live, and during the first round, I remember actually putting a bet on it for you to win. I just had this feeling. It was about 30 seconds into the fight, and I just had this feeling you were going to do it. One thing I want to touch on as well, I felt that your trainer, Glenn Rushton, was excellent in the corner for the entire fight. And also, it was brilliant when referee Mark Nelson came over to your corner late on in the fight between rounds and mentioned something about stopping the fight. And Glenn said something along the lines of, "We're winning the fight, you idiot." That was a mad moment, Jeff, as well.
Yes, it was. I guess he was calm in the corner for pretty much that whole fight. Kept me calm as well, and I guess he was confident as well because he felt like I was winning the fight. Like I was doing exactly what we'd trained to do and what I envisioned what I could do to Manny Pacquiao, and he was like, "Yeah, you're winning this fight, so like, well done." So I guess that kept him calm in there as well, and but we did think that we needed to stop Manny Pacquiao probably to get the victory, even though I know a lot of judges out there don't like me really saying it, but we know what boxing can be like sometimes, and I thought I needed to knock Manny Pacquiao out to get that victory, and I was standing there at the end of the fight not expecting my name to be read out, so I was absolutely on top of the world when I heard NU.
And you say there that you were on top of the world, Jeff. Describe for me, if you can, that feeling and maybe how life changed, if it did, after that.
Yeah, look, I had achieved my goal. Like, my life goal as a kid was to become a world-famous, athlete. When I was younger, it was to be a soccer player, and I did that for 12 years. That didn't go any good, so the next thing that kind of came into my life was boxing, and I was able to achieve my dream of becoming the best in the world at that time, and I was very proud of myself, and I can remember getting goosebumps and being just so happy when the decision was announced, and it was a dream come true.
And I think while we're on the topic of the fight, I always felt that you won. I just want to put it out there. I always felt that you won. A lot of people didn't, but I always felt you were deserving of the victory. In some parts of the world, there was outrage with the decision, but how was it actually received in Australia, Jeff?
Yeah, it was good here. A lot of people in Australia actually watched the fight, and they were cheering me on and and thinking that I was doing well in the fight. So I guess when the judges even look back at it and go and rescore the fight, they go, well, yeah, he's controlling the fight. He's throwing the bigger punches, and yeah, even though Manny Pacquiao might have got me in round 9 with a couple of good shots, a couple of good shots doesn't change 9 rounds of boxing.
No, I agree. And I say there that some people were outraged. I'm going to exclude Australia for a moment, but do you ever feel like you were given enough credit for beating a legend like Manny by maybe some of the other fans, not Australian fans though?
Look, I normally didn't. Anyone that I kind of spoke to would be fine to my face and congratulate me and stuff, except for Teddy Atlas, especially straight after the fight. But yeah, everyone seemed to be quite happy with it and happy with me as champion. And it was only really the online world that kind of was spiraling out of control and saying that I shouldn't be world champion. And your first title defence took place back in Brisbane against the UK's very own Gary Corcoran. Gary Corcoran, friend of the show. December 13th, 2017 was the day, a Wednesday evening. You won the contest in the end, in round 11, a stoppage. Talk us through that fight, my man. Gary was a tough guy. He was a game fighter. Oh, yeah, he was a very tough guy. He came to fight, that's for sure. He was a tough test for me. After Manny Pacquiao, he was a bigger guy, and he had probably similar. He was similar. I guess he was the same weight class as me, but he was pretty similar exactly to how big I was, and he was a good boxer as well. So it was a tough fight until it lasted. I got him with a couple of good shots, and eventually got him. And during that time in the UK, there were strong rumours at the time of a fight between you and Bradley Skeet. How close, though, was that actually to happening, Jeff? Because in the UK, we heard strong rumours, but again, we're so far away from Australia. Just speaking to you now, I wondered how close that fight ever was to actually taking place. Look, I do remember Bradley's name coming up and talking about it at one stage. I don't know if it was instead of Gary Corcoran that we were going to be going Skeet. Maybe it was close at one point that we were going to be going that way, but I can't really remember exactly kind of how things kind of ran back at that time, but I do remember Bradley's name coming up as well and as a potential contender. Yeah, no, for sure. And your second defence of the title came on June 9th, 2018 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. You stepped in with the undefeated former WBO lightweight and undisputed super lightweight champion of the world. A man that, for me, what are we now, 5 years later, is the pound-for-pound king, Terence Crawford. You sadly lost the fight by TKO in the 9th. The 9th round was not your luckiest of rounds. It seemed to be a pattern in your career. You were dethroned in Crawford's first fight at the weight. Look what he's gone on to achieve, though, Jeff. I think for me, there's zero shame in losing to Crawford. But just talk me through the fight. Another night sharing the ring with a future Hall of Famer. Yeah, look, I thought I was going to be, like I thought with Manny Pacquiao, I thought I was going to be able to out-muscle Terence Crawford in there and break him down over the distance. But he's just a sharpshooter, Crawford, and his boxing IQ is very, very high, and he was able to pick me to pieces, I guess, through that fight. And, he just eventually got me with a couple too many and was able to stop me in that 9th round. And I'm definitely very happy for Crawford and definitely cheering him on as to take the bigger and better fights out there. And he's already proved he's an absolute champion, and I'm sure he will be remembered for a long time. Yeah, I agree.
and just 5 months later, you're back in Brisbane fighting at pretty much middleweight. I think it may have been a catchweight fight when you boxed former 2-time WBA super middleweight world champion Anthony Mundine. You get the stoppage in the very first round when you dropped him hard. You could hear his head smashing against the canvas. He tried to get back up. The referee waved it off. It was a short fight, but tell us about that one as well, Jeff.
Yeah, look, Mundine's a big name, definitely here in Australia. He likes to cause a lot of mayhem before the fight with things that he says and what he says about his opponent as well. But Mundine was a nice guy away from the cameras and the microphones. So I didn't have anything bad against Mundine. He was a good guy behind closed doors, and I just got him with a really good shot in that very first round, and it was just a sweet time shot that landed around his temple, and he was down and out.
I remember before the fight, it was a little bit distasteful in the build-up. It's good to hear that behind closed doors he's maybe not that bad. But yeah, I was going to ask, did it make the victory even sweeter? Because I believe he said you were only popular because of your skin colour.
Yeah, but that's how Mundine's kind of been, I guess, throughout his whole career, and I think he probably believes a little bit as well that there's favouritism with white people, but Australians are a very multicultural place, and we treat everyone as equal as possible. And I guess Mundine had his views, but some of them are, I think, a little bit not quite accurate.
Yeah, and 9 months later, you're back out again, this time in Bendigo, this time properly at middleweight. You boxed Michael Zarafa. August 31st, 2019 was the date. You were down in the second, you got back up, you were down again in the 9th round, once again that torrid 9th round, and again you got back up, but you end up getting stopped in that same round. Talk me through that one, Jeff. It left a lot of people thinking maybe the move from welterweight to middleweight was too great a jump.
Yes, and I think those people might be right by saying that. I think that weight jump, I definitely realised the weight with Michael Zarafa, that he was a bigger and stronger guy, and those extra few kilos were definitely an advantage for him, and that's why I guess I couldn't really get him, and I thought I was going to be able to get. This is always my mindset when I've had a loss. When I thought it was going to be an easier fight than it was, well, like what I thought with Crawford, I thought he was a smaller guy. I was going to be able to outmuscle him. Didn't happen. I thought Michael Zarafa probably wasn't as good as a boxer as he was. I thought it was going to have too much experience for him. He beat me as well, and that's basically been how my career's gone. If I've underestimated an opponent just a little bit, that's when I've had my losses.
And what's crazy is the rematch with Michael Zarafa took place December 18th of that year. So just 4 months later, which looking back now seems a bit crazy. Back in Brisbane too, this time it was you who scored 2 knockdowns, both in that crazy 9th round that we just cannot forget. You were cut, you were covered in blood. Zarafa was coming on strong in that round. You took a lot of big shots, but you managed to land that peach of a right hand to put him down. He gets back up, you put him down again. Incredible drama in that round, and obviously you go on to win a majority decision and avenge that loss to Zarafa. I mean, what a fight. Talk me through that, Jeff.
Oh, look, it was an absolute brutal fight, that's for sure. But I knew I had it in me to beat Michael Zarafa, even though, I guess, if you're talking these days with the hunger that I've gotten in the sport, I don't think I'd be able to beat Michael Zarafa now. But look, he was definitely a superb fighter, and I definitely underestimated him and how physical he can be in there. And he taught me a valuable lesson once again.
And your final fight took place 8 months later, August 26th, 2020, against the undefeated and future WBO super welterweight world champion Tszyu. You were down in the 3rd and the 6th before, in the end, not coming out for the 9th round. Talk us through that one briefly, Jeff. I guess maybe Tim was just a bit too fresh.
Yeah, that's the same thing, underestimating him, thinking I was going to be able to outmuscle Tszyu, and he's definitely got some great boxing skills in him, that's for sure, and he was able to wear me down. He's got some excellent body shots. He punished me there brutally throughout the fight, which definitely exhausted me by my round 9 kind of time, and he was able to get rid of me as well.
And some fighters retire immediately after their last fight. You took a long, long time to formally retire. Why was that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Were you contemplating coming back during that time, maybe?
I was. If I had a good enough offer to come back, I even had said if someone offers me over $1 million to come back and fight again, there was potential for me to come back. But I always had people either offer me $1 million to come back and fight Michael Zerafa after having a couple of years off, and I saw that as a disaster waiting to happen if I was to do that. So that was a no, and then I got an offer to fight someone else, another random kind of fighter below the top level, and that was for $750,000, just chopping me short of my $1 million call out, and so I was like, no, I'm not fighting if you're not offering me $1 million.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of the reasons for your retirement was memory issues. Talk to me about that if you can, Jeff.
Look, I've had a useless memory for my whole life, to be honest, and people put more on this than there probably is, and I'm just kind of, I forget things. I'm very, I guess, chilled and calm person and relaxed, and probably for that reason I forget a lot of things, and but there were some little things that I was forgetting around that time that I was like, I probably shouldn't forget this, but maybe it was because my life was just so busy and it was so hectic and so many things going on, and I was forgetting things, and I feel like that might have been a reason towards it.
So you retired with a record of 20 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. It's important to note that the 3 losses, 2 were to future Hall of Famers, 1 obviously to Tszyu, who's still undefeated, now a reigning world champion. Who knows, he could wind up in the Hall of Fame someday too. Time for some quick fire questions before we let you go, Jeff. I've got about 6 more to come. Favourite win of your career?
Manny Pacquiao, for sure.
Okay. Well, when I say quick fire, it doesn't mean you completely don't have to expand. You can if you want.
Okay. Manny Pacquiao, because he's someone that I looked up to in the sport from the very beginning. He's an absolute legend and nice guy. Doesn't normally trash talk or anything. So I was very similar to Manny Pacquiao in that way, and treating other people the way that I'd like to be treated, and he was just an all-time great guy and a superb fighter, and I had the pleasure to share the ring with him and get the victory against him.
Hardest puncher that you ever shared a ring with?
That would have to be Randall Bailey. That shot that he got me with, he has definitely some lead in his hands, that's for sure.
And best opponent all round that you shared a ring with?
I would have to say that's Terence Crawford. He was very good boxing skills. Was able to walk me into a lot of punches, and as a small guy, he definitely made his power, I guess, known to me by making me walk, being smart, making me walk onto his shots.
Yeah, tremendous fighter. Was there anyone that you'd have liked to have had the chance to fight, but it didn't quite come off?
I did. I called out straight after my Manny Pacquiao fight. I called out Floyd Mayweather for a fight, in a hope to have a mega fight there against him, and he wasn't interested in that. So, but that's what all fighters want. They want to fight the money man, which is Money Mayweather, and that was my next target, was to fight the all-time great Floyd Mayweather. So, but that didn't come to fruition, and now I just went on to do my business.
And my next question, I love it when I ask this question to fighters and they respond with the answer no, but I don't know what you're going to say. Were there any regrets? Are there any regrets if you could go back in time and change something? Would you?
Look, I guess, like I was telling you before, if I was to not underestimate an opponent, I might have gone on to do bigger and better things in the sport again. So I didn't underestimate Manny Pacquiao, that's for sure, and I got that victory. And if I didn't underestimate Michael Zraffa, I might have had a massive fight against Murata over in Japan. Got some big money for that fight, and then the same with Tszyu. I'd be going on doing bigger things now if I was able to not underestimate him as well. So who knows what would happen, but I regret at times in my career underestimating opponents.
Yeah, that's not the worst regret ever, so that's not a bad thing, I don't think. I'm going to put you on the spot slightly here. I like to ask this question to everyone that we speak to from overseas, Jeff. Favourite UK fighter, any era? Who springs to mind?
I'd have to say it would have to be Amir Khan or Kell Brook, one of those two guys. They were in my weight divisions. I had eyes on them for quite some time, and I would have loved to have got a fight against one of those two, but it just wasn't able to happen, and yeah. Yeah,
two great fighters at the time, for sure. And I want to ask you as well, Jeff, what are you up to now? What keeps you busy now, my friend?
I got a program that we run in schools all over Queensland and Australia. It's called Bullyproof Australia, and our goal is to change lives and help save lives against bullying. And we teach kids the skills and things that they need to be able to manage life, to manage conflict in life, because a lot of the time people don't know what to do, and just simple conflict situations can turn into bullying, and then you have kids taking their own life, and that's the worst thing that can happen. I could only imagine losing my children to bullying, and I don't want to let it happen to anyone. So we're doing the best we can to put this program through all schools in the country and hopefully all over the world.
And credit to you, my friend. That's a beautiful thing. I'm so happy that someone with your platform, with your life experience even, is channeling into something like this. It's a remarkable thing. So pat on the back from me there. I want to ask you the last real question, and it's an important question, Jeff. Are you a happy man? Looking back now, 2023, coming to the end of the year, but are you happy? You happy in life right now, Jeff?
Yes, I'm very happy. I've got a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful children, loving family around me and friends. I've got massive supporters over my career that have turned into great friends as well. And look, I couldn't be happier, to be honest. I'm on top of the world, and I'm just loving life at the moment, and wouldn't change anything.
I'm so pleased for you, because a lot of fighters, especially ex-fighters that I speak to, are not too pleased with the life they have right now, and it's sad, but I'm happy to hear that you're in a great place. Just before we wrap it up, Jeff, if you just want to sign out this interview with any closing words to the listeners, if you want to send a message, particularly to UK listeners, for guys that have supported you throughout your career, or if you just want to finish with any message, the floor is yours.
I'd just like to say thank you for all the support that people have shown me in the past as a professional fighter, and I guess wish everyone else the success in their lives, and just I guess keep an eye out for Bullyproof Australia, or just the Bullyproof program that will be coming all over the world someday soon, and we're going to help change the lives of our children and our futures.
What a beautiful thing. Listen, Jeff, it's been an absolute honour speaking with you this week. Thanks for walking down memory lane with me. I want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope we can speak again someday, my friend.
Thanks, Joey. See you, mate.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. I hope you all enjoyed the Jeff Horn interview just there. It's really good to get someone like that on, and that's what we do on a Christmas show. Go and kind of get someone from the past, an interesting guest with their own story, that's not really relevant to this week or anything. I like to do that on the Christmas special shows that we do every year. It's now time for the news, though. We're going to start here with this one. Obviously, last week, the fight ended up falling through. Julio Cesar Martinez against Angelino Cordova. It was postponed due to Julio Cesar Martinez having issues getting into the country, into the United States. He had some visa issues, so that one has been postponed. It's going to be rescheduled for 2024. No date just yet, though, so we'll see what happens with that. Matchroom have announced 3 February fight nights. It's going to be live on DAZN, all 3 of them. Let's start with the first one. February the 10th, the rematch between Conor Walker and Cyrus Patterson. That goes down in Newcastle. Again, February the 10th. Also, on the 16th of February as well, in Mexico, it's a Friday, we're going to see the rematch between Adrian Curiel and Sivanafi Nontshinga. Obviously they boxed a couple months ago. Nontshinga got stopped. It was a massive upset, and the South African gets a chance here to run it back for the IBF light flyweight world title, of course. Also, we will see Padraig McCrory step in there with Edgar Berlanga. That should be an interesting fight there. That goes down in Orlando on February the 24th. So, some nice fights there announced for February from Matchroom. What else do we have? We're going to see a fight here that's going to go down on March the 2nd. It's from Top Rank, this one. We're going to see Otabek Kolmatov step in the ring with Raymond Ford. That one for the vacant WBA featherweight world title. The unbeaten Southpaws, WBA's number 1 and number 2, boxing there for the vacant belt, like we say. What else do we have? I believe that is all. Right, let's go straight to the preview part then. We're going to start with the huge one that goes down on Saturday. Absolutely cannot wait. Been dying for this card. And I think there's some interesting fights there, Eddie. We're going to probably talk about every single one. Some of them brief, some of them a little bit more in depth, but it's such a superstar card. I'm going to start with the undercard and just work the way up, I think, of course. There's a few fights here where I think we're going to disagree on outcomes. But let's start with this one here, which I think we're probably both going to agree here. Filip Hrgović, 16-0 in a 10-rounder here against friend of the show, nice guy, Mark Damori, 41-2 with 2 draws. I think Mark Damori is grossly overmatched here. We know that he really pads up that record. I was at his last fight that he lost, which was back in 2016, in January 2016, when he got stopped in a round to David Haye, 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0 on a comeback at heavyweight after some time out the ring. I was there when he got stopped there in a round. Since then, though, he's put together this crazy run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fights. 10 by KO. He boxed in September, went the distance with a guy who was 16-20 with 2 draws. He's very much padding up the record at the moment. Like I say, 41 wins, 36 KOs. But yeah, I expect him to get stopped. He's now 41 years of age. But yeah, I'm expecting him to get stopped here, Eddie, and I can see it coming within the first 4 rounds. Maybe within the first 3 rounds. To play it safe, I'd say within the first 6.
That's my man, Mark Damori, man. Mark Damori came to camp with the Tyson Fury group. I'm sorry, the Tyson Fury. How stupid do I sound? The Fury camp when I was there, and really, really good dude, man. Like I can't say too bad of a word about him, but he had a hard time, which most guys who came into that camp were so not expecting it to be what it was when they got there. But, great guy, decent fighter as far as skills and everything. And obviously, but like you said, padded record, hasn't really been in with a lot of great competition, and, that he's beaten. And now he's stepping in with somebody who's a young guy, a young lion, hungry, and looking to challenge for a world title at some point in the future. And it's just, if there was going to be an upset in a fight that would just, make me just it would just be like almost impossible to happen, this would be the fight. You can almost, and I hate to say this, but you can almost put it in the books now. In the first 2 to 3 rounds, 4 rounds max, I just don't see it going much further than that. I don't think Mark has enough to keep Hrgovic off. We all know how busy of a guy he is. I just think I'm actually taking too much time explaining it. It really doesn't really need much more explanation than it's just going to be a tough night for Mark, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to just say, let's try to speed it up a little bit. We're also going to see Frank Sanchez, Eddie, 23-0. He boxed gatekeeper Scott Alexander in his last fight. Even though he did stop Scott Alexander, he did get hit with a shot that buckled his legs. And, for a moment or two, it was a bit worrying actually watching Frank Sanchez there. He gets in though with Junior Farr of New Zealand. Junior Farr though hasn't boxed in 14 months, and 14 months ago he stopped a guy in 1 round. The guy was 0-6. The fight before that, which took place 4 months earlier, he was stopped in 1 round to Lucas Brown. Although that looks like a terrible loss, I don't think it was as bad as it looks on paper, because basically he hurt Brown and he went in for the kill and got caught, because Brown, if nothing else, can bang like hell, and he basically got stopped, and it was all in 1 round, so it was madness. And obviously Lucas Brown kind of revitalized his career right there. But yeah, the fight before that was 16 months prior to Joseph Parker. He went 12 rounds and lost unanimously to Joseph Parker back in February 2021. Since then, he's had these 2 fights with Lucas Brown and the guy that was 0-6, and they've only gone a round each. So basically, what I'm trying to say, it's almost been 3 years since the Parker fight, and he's done 2 rounds in that time, got knocked out in a round and won in a round. You'd have to back Frank Sanchez here. However, just because Lucas Brown stopped him in a round, Joseph Parker did go 12 with him. And I don't know if he dropped him along the way. I can't remember the fight. But what I'm trying to say is I think he's much better than he looked in that loss to Lucas Brown. Frank Sanchez sometimes doesn't like to step on the gas, particularly early. I think we're going to see some rounds here. I think the bet is the over, which for those that are not too familiar with boxing betting and all the rest of it, you can bet on how many rounds a fight's going to go. And I do just want to have a little look. Frank Sanchez Jr. Farr, the over-under is set at 5.5 rounds. So basically, I would say potentially over. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Frank Sanchez win that on points. It's a tough ask just because of the inactivity with Junior Farr. But again, I don't think he's going to blow him out. I think it's going to go a few rounds. But again, not super confident on that. Eddie, just very, very, very brief word before we move on.
Yeah. Honestly, I can agree. This is going to go probably a few rounds, mainly because Frank Sanchez, tends to move and wants to box, take his time. So that can happen, and I agree 100%. If I'm going to bet the over for sure. But stranger things have happened. Junior Farr has been stopped in a round, even though it was by Lucas Brown, and Frank Sanchez can punch. So keep that in mind before you make that bet.
There we go. Also on the card, this one again I think is going to be quite exciting. Arslanbek Makhmudov, 18-0, 17 KOs. The only man to take him the distance being Carlos Takam. He gets in with Ajit Kabayel, 23-0 of Germany, the 6'3" fighter. This is somewhat intriguing. I'm expecting Makhmudov to stop him. I remember, I guess, Kabayel in some ways bursting on the scene when he beat Derek Chisora back in 2017, and he just basically used his feet and used his jab and made it really boring and pretty much dominated Chisora just with one hand. Since then, though, it's a real poor run of opponents. You know, some really bad guys. He went the distance with Andre Rudenko. That's one of the big names on there. Went the distance with Kevin Johnson 3 fights ago or 2 fights ago. That was back in June of 2021. He had one fight in 2022. It went 1 round against Pavel Sauer, former victim of Huey Fury. And then he had one fight in March of this year where he got a 3rd round TKO against a guy who I've never heard of. So again, he's only done 4 rounds in in the last sort of year and a half. He gets in with Makhmudov, who has been active, but again has only done a small number of rounds. Just 1 round back in October when he boxed back in Saudi Arabia. Makhmudov, obviously a Muslim boxer, he was there on that Tyson Fury and Ngannou card. Got a 1st round knockout there. He boxed again in July, got a 2nd round knockout there. Boxed a year ago this month as well. So he's kind of had 3 fights in a year, but they've only gone 1 round, 2 round, and 1 round. Again, his competition of late hasn't been great. Obviously went the distance with Takam, knocked out Mariusz Wach. He beat Pavel Sauer in a round as well. So they've both beaten Pavel Sauer in a round. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, but I think you know, Caballero can move, and there's some people that are looking at that Takam fight saying, well, you know, Caballero's got better feet than him. He's got a chance in this, but I just think he's going to be too small, too undersized. He's only 6'3". Makhmudov Makhmudov's only 6'5.5". I thought he was more like 6'7", 6'8", something like that. Maybe I'm a bit wrong, but I can't see him withstanding the power that Makhmudov brings to the table. I'm expecting a Makhmudov win by KO. If somehow it did go the distance, though, you know, I don't think they're going to give it to Caballero over Makhmudov. Like I say, I think he's very well liked in Saudi Arabia, but could be interesting, Eddie. I wouldn't blink on that one. Yeah, that could be interesting, but I'm riding with Makhmudov to get the KO. What else do we have? This one's going to be interesting, Eddie. Daniel Dubois, 19-2, coming off that loss last time out to Alexander Usyk just 4 months ago this week. He gets in with Jarrell Big Baby Miller, 26-0 with a draw, friend of the show. Jarrell Miller coming off that win 9 months ago against Lucas Brown, where it took him 6 rounds to get the TKO in a really kind of grueling fight for both men. Hasn't really looked the same since the drug scandal. He's had 3 comeback fights now, 2 stoppages, and 1 fight in which he went the distance with Ariel Bracamonte, who normally gets stopped. He got stopped, for example, by Dave Allen once upon a time, if my memory serves me right. Yeah, he got stopped by Dave Allen, got stopped by Fraser Clark, got stopped by Ivan Dyko, but Jarrell Big Baby Miller went 10 rounds with him. Anyway, moving off the subject into a different area there a little bit, but Big Baby Miller and Daniel Dubois already, another one where people are saying that they can see an upset here. Dubois is the favourite, but some people think Miller could do this just because he's got an unusual style for a big guy. He takes a lot of punishment, good chin, and if he can take Dubois into deep waters, there's a few question marks with the recent habit that I guess Dubois has got of taking a knee.
That, if I was, I guess I am a betting man now. If I was a betting man, if it was going to be one that I would pick as a sleeper, it would definitely be this one. Because, you know, like you said, Danny Dubois recently has been, he's gotten beaten twice, stopped, in particular with Usyk not too long ago. You know, sometimes with those types of situations, you don't get over it. There's kind of like something hanging over you from it. And then you get in there with a guy who's so they're talking about now, he's walking around at 20-something pounds. And that's a lot of weight to have to deal with to be able to keep somebody off you. And he's not a bum. He has boxing skills. So it's not going to be a typical fight with with a guy who's 320-pound mummy that's going to be sitting there. It's going to be easy to pick off. he's gonna continue to walk you down. His punch count's pretty high. He's not gonna be like not gonna be a typical situation. So, and Dubois can be hurt. And I don't think Big Baby punches crazy, but I think it's the volume and the pressure and the weight and the mauling that I think he's going to be trying to do here with Dubois. They're similar in height, but the weight is just a lot to overcome. You know what I mean? I don't see it. I don't see this being an easy. Well, of course, it's not going to be easy win for Dubois. I see this as being one of those fights that you could easily pick. And honestly, if I'm betting, I'm going to pick Miller. So because I've seen him like when he fought Joe Washington and stuff like that. It's just it has that kind of a feel to me. You know what I mean? Dubois probably is a harder puncher, better fighter, and all around. But I just think that once you get past the 5th and 6th round with a dude who's that big, who's putting pressure, strong, tough, durable, that has pretty decent skills as well. I think it's a lot of work. I think it's going to be a lot of work, probably a little bit too much for him. Hey, but I've been wrong before, and maybe the favorite's going to win this one. But I think it's going to be Miller that's going to come out on top on this one.
Wow. Okay, Miller for the upset. That's interesting, Eddie. You can get a good price on that. Miller just to win by any method, you can just over triple your money. It's 11-5. By knockout is 11-4, and decision for Miller to win by decision, you can get 15 times your money. So they're not expecting him to outwork Dubois. I think they're probably right on that. I can't see him winning a decision. Interesting stuff. Okay, my pick for that would be Dubois KO. I just think that Jarrell Big Baby Miller's just too stationary, especially since coming off the PED scandal. I just think he's going to be standing right there for the big long Dubois right hand. They are similar in height, but I'd say Dubois has definitely got the longer arms. I think he's going to be able to get him on the end of the jab and get him on the end of the right hand, and I just don't think anyone can stand in front of Dubois with very little head movement for 12 rounds or however long the fight's scheduled for. It's a 10 rounder. So I don't think he's going to be able to stand there for 10 rounds taking that right hand. I can see at some point Dubois getting to him, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dubois just trying to jab and move and win win on points. I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think if I was pushed, it would be a Dubois stoppage. So we disagree there, Eddie. Okay, moving back to the next fight. Let's move up that card. Jai Opetaia, 23-0. He was the IBF Cruiserweight World Champion. They've stripped him because basically he decided to take on the UK's Ellis Zorro, who's 17-0. Basically, I think they think it's such a mismatch that they don't want their belt on the line for it. Ellis Zorro is, in this fight, is kind of, being spoken about as, a lamb going to slaughter. I like Ellis Zorro. I really like him. I think his development through the domestic scene has been quite smart, quite well planned, quite well thought out. And this fight just makes absolutely no sense. I'm guessing he's getting a nice bit of money for it. But it's like a lose-lose situation, I think. Like I say, I hope he's getting a nice pay packet, but it makes no real sense. I like the way he's been moved, and this is like a complete suicide fight, to be honest. They've been building him nicely, and I guess maybe they were just building him towards a big payday, and this is it, and then he can just go straight back to domestic scene if he's not too damaged, which I hope doesn't happen to him on Saturday night. But it's such a massive mismatch, and Jai Opetaia is expected to just walk through him in a matter of a round or two. That's what they're saying. I hope they're wrong. I hope we see a few rounds. Also on the card, another, in my opinion, real bad mismatch. Dimitri Bivol, 21-0, gets in with Lyndon Arthur, 23-1. It's for the IBO World Light Heavyweight title and the WBA Super World Light Heavyweight title. So yeah, 12 rounds, just like the Opetaia and Zorro fight. Again, I'm expecting, and this is, you can actually more than double your money on this, but I'm expecting Dimitri Bivol to win by stoppage. I really am. And a lot of people don't think that's going to happen because Bivol doesn't tend to get the stoppage. Bivol is usually a guy that goes the distance. I think his knockout percentage is just over 50%. But anyway, his last knockout came in 2018, which is kind of crazy. It was in early 2018, so almost 6 years ago against Sullivan Barrera, and it was in the 12th and final round. Obviously, he's boxed some really decent fighters since then, the likes of Jean Pascal, Joe Smith, Isaac Chilemba, tough guy, Craig Richards, Canelo, Gilberto Ramirez. He hasn't stopped any of those guys. But Lyndon Arthur, who's been stopped and he's only lost, obviously, the rematch with Anthony Yarde, he looked great in that first Yarde fight, but the second Yarde fight, when Yarde really showed up, he was no match for Anthony Yarde that time there. I really like Lyndon. Like I say, he's a friend of the show, but he's looked very, very beatable in his last few fights. He didn't look good against Boris Crichton. He looked quite bad against Boris Crichton, who only had about 2 days' notice for the fight. Then he got in his last fight with that Brian Suarez, who no one had ever heard of, and he was losing the fight, and he was down as well, got knocked down in round 4 against Suarez. Who was a big puncher, I give him credit there, but he looked very, very vulnerable there, Arthur. He looks like a bad knockout waiting to happen. And like I say, he found the body shot in the 10th round to turn the fight on its head, and he needed a knockout there. So I still don't know where he found that shot from. It was only 3 months ago. But he gets in with Bivol, who I think is just too precise a puncher, and it's just gonna have way too much for him to withstand 12 rounds. So I'm going with the Bivol stoppage. It will more than likely come late in the fight, but I'm going with Bivol by stoppage. Eddie, I don't know if you know much about Lyndon. If you don't, let's just skip straight past it.
Yeah, I know a little bit about him. I watched him in that Yarde fight. I watched him a couple times other fights. He's pretty good. Pretty tall guy, good. Good rangy guy, but I do agree. Obviously Yarde stopping him the way he did in the second fight, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not still good or he's damaged goods, but then again, it can also. And we got to agree that he's stepping up to a really, really high level, very accurate puncher. There's a good chance that he could get stopped. I would probably lean more toward a distance because that's just the way Dimitri Bivol is built. I think he boxes, and even though he pressures at times, and he does have a good punch count, I just think his style in particular doesn't always try to put so much into every shot. Not that you have to knock a guy out. Sometimes you just catch him. I just think it's more of a distance fight. That's my opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go. If you can get him for the knockout on the bet, I would definitely at least try for it if it's got good odds. But yeah, interesting fight, but without a doubt, I think Bivol's definitely going to take it. I think more so by decision, though.
Okay, Bivol decision. While you was just talking there, I was just trying to put all my kind of picks into a parlay just to see what the overall odds are. I'll come back to that in a moment when I come to you in a minute, which I will do. Yeah, so getting to the two kind of main fights. Deontay Wilder, 43-2 with a draw. 42 by KO. Coming off that fight 14 months ago now, in which he stopped Robert Helenius in just one round. Again, very inactive really when you think about it, because he'd gone a whole year since the Tyson Fury third fight, which obviously went 11 rounds. But that was in October 2021, so it's been, again, 2 years and 2 months, and he's only had one round of action. He gets in with Joseph Parker, friend of the show. Everyone likes Big Joe. 33-3. Joseph Parker coming off the win last time against Simon Keane, which again was back in Saudi Arabia just 2 months ago. Very, very more active than Deontay has been recently. Yeah, so interesting fight. I really liked Parker's performance last time. I thought it was the best performance he'd put in for years. I was a massive believer in Parker's chin. I think he showed a great chin against Anthony Joshua. He's always been a really tough guy, took a lot of big shots, but we did see him get stopped by Joe Joyce in just a year and 3 months ago. Like I say, he's come back with 3 good wins since then, 3 really impressive wins. Not the Jack Massey one. That wasn't too great, but, Jack Massey's a better fighter than people give him credit for being. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker, Eddie. I'd love to see Joe win this. I'd love to. But I just think he's going to get clipped at some point, like pretty much everyone has been clipped by that right hand at some point. The only man who has managed to, I say get out the way of it, he still took it and went down, was Tyson Fury. So I think just like every other 40-odd opponent, a number of opponents, he's going to get touched at some point, and I don't think that chin is going to hold up. But my pick is just for the fight to not go the distance. I don't think we're going to see 12 rounds. I'm not going to pick who is going to get the stoppage, but that's the bet I'm going to go with. The fight not to go the distance. I'd love Joe to be the victor.
Yeah, man. Gentleman Joe. No, he's a good guy, man. And it's funny, I haven't actually formally met him, but I think I've talked on social media with him. He's a really nice dude, even his people as well. So he's the kind of guy you want to root for. You want to see him win. You know what I mean? You want to see him on top. He's just that kind of guy. But it's unfortunate he's got to get in there with this guy. This guy's, you want to talk bad about him. You want to say, oh, he's not this. He doesn't have this. But it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? All the years I've been watching this guy, and he just doesn't have the skill. You know what I mean? But to be able to probably be a Hall of Famer when he's retired, not probably guaranteed to be, with remedial boxing ability and his skills, it's incredible because he knows he's obviously done it. You know what I mean? He's in every single fight till the last second ticks off the clock. That's just how it is. Some people are just born with that gift, and he has been born with that gift. And, he's honed it to a degree to where he understands how to make that weapon or sharpen that weapon as the fight goes on, as the guy gets a little more tired or a little more relaxed, a little more confident, because sometimes confidence can be your enemy too. And I think with Wilder, and when people see that, damn, he's really not that good, and then you go to sleep and you forget that he can at any point change the fight. And I think that's happened, both times with Luis Ortiz and, a host of, even with Tyson Fury, even with Tyson a few times, man. You fall asleep at the wheel sometimes because you're in such control, but you always got to be leery of that right hand. That's just something that's one of the best, the biggest and most potent weapons that boxing has ever seen. And it's something that, you would hate to see him go down on it, but it's likely that he will. You know what I mean? Unless he can stay away from it or, stay off that line and not challenge it, not get too confident, it's a possibility he could win. Because I do think he could possibly outbox him, or at least put him in his position to do so. But it's just that right hand, man. He's got to stay away from it. But if he can't, it's probably going to be KO at some point, Wilder, and it's just unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Love Joe Parker, but it's probably going to be a Wilder knockout at some point in that fight.
So you're going with Wilder KO in that one, Eddie, yeah?
I think that's the bet, man. And I would love to see the guy do well and pull it out. But if I had to bet, which I probably will do, it's going to be a Wilder KO. I'm going to give him respect and give him I'm going to give him 5 to 6 rounds. You know what I mean? But Joseph Parker's a proud guy who can fight and will fight you. You know what I'm saying? He's going to try to test you. And I just think that's where the demise begins. He has to stay extremely disciplined, like he's never been before in this fight, in order to pull out the win. But he can win. Don't get it twisted. Joe Parker can fight, but he's got to stay away from that right hand.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting because I think I just want to quickly spend a minute just going back through our picks. So, Eddie, we agree Hrgovic 1 to 4 rounds.
Yes, sir.
Frank Sanchez.
Maximum 4.
Okay. Frank Sanchez over 5.5 rounds, I think we agreed on.
Yeah, that's absolutely agreed.
I'm going with Makhmudov KO. You've gone with
Makhmudov is who is he fighting again? We didn't.
Ajit Caballero.
Nah,
German,
I didn't bet on this one. I'm gonna take whoever you got on that one because you know more about him than I do. I've probably seen him fight before, but not.
All right, okay, Makhmudov KO as well then. And then you're going with Miller. I'm going with Dubois. Opatai, I don't know if you saw it, he's definitely going to stop that guy. So let's both take him by KO. I've gone Bivol KO. You've gone Bivol points, I think, no?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going with the fight not to go the distance with Parker and Wilder, but you're going Wilder KO.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
If I'm picking Parker to win, I'm picking decision. But I don't think the fight's going to go to distance. But the reason the fight wouldn't go to distance is because Wilder stops him. But if Parker wins, in my opinion, as tough as Deontay is, it's going to be a decision. I just don't see him being able to do to Deontay what Tyson was able to do, like using the size and the strength. I'm not saying that Joe Parker can't punch, but he's just extremely tough, Deontay Wilder. So, yeah.
Okay, well then we get to the main event then. Anthony Joshua, 26-3. What was his last fight? I've totally forgot. Obviously beat Robert Helenius, didn't he? Had a few problems, got busted up a little bit there, got the stoppage in round 7, which extended the fact that he hasn't got a stoppage in the first 6 rounds of a fight since Eric Molina 7 years ago this month. He gets in with Otto Wallin, 26-1, probably coming off his career best win last time out when he was able to outpoint Murat Gassiev on the road in Russia. It was a split decision in the end, but there's no way in the world that really reflected the fight. He clearly won the fight. 6'5.5" southpaw from Sweden, Eddie. I tell you what, this is where we might really disagree. I'm going with Wallin, and I'm going with. I'm not going to back him for points because the odds on that are crazy. But I think, by the way, on a side note, there's some great value in Wallin to win on points. It's about 6-1. But I'm going with Wallin to win this. I just think he's going to be too busy. I think he can outbox Joshua. I think he's going to be busy. I think he's going to be nicking rounds if we're going to be judging it properly. Not judging it with the eye on, Joshua Wilder has to take place next year back in Saudi, so let's rob Wallin. If we're judging it fairly, I think Wallin's going to be too busy. I think Joshua doesn't seem to be in the right frame of mind these days. He paid, I think it was about £2,000, I think last month, to be locked in a room where it's completely pitch black, and he had no phone. I think they were giving him food through a hatch. He was in the middle of the woods somewhere, completely locked himself away. That doesn't scream a man that's in a great place, in my opinion. But then again, it might have done him wonders. I don't know. But on fight week, from what I've seen so far, he seems not really his old self. He seems a bit kind of, a bit. I don't know, a bit rude for once. He's usually the nice guy around the media. He's kind of giving one-word answers, and it's, I don't know. There seems to be he's not quite his old self. Some people think, he's in a bad mood, he's going to absolutely paste Wallin all over the floor, but I actually think it's going to work against him. I think he's confident, but I don't know, Wallin being a southpaw, good chin, stuck to a good game plan last time against Gassiev, good engine, better engine than Joshua, that's for sure. I think Wallin's going to nick this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he even stopped him late on, but Wallin's much more of a boxer than a feet plotted and trade to try and get you out of there, which it would be against Joshua. So I'm going to go with Wallin to win this fight, Eddie.
Honestly, man, you think we're going to disagree entirely, but the only part that I disagree is I think Wallin would need to and probably would win by decision. But
that's
we
what
all
I said.
know. Yeah, right. But you said by decision, right?
Yeah.
But you said, as you all said, he could probably stop him late. I don't see the stoppage being late. I don't see it happening, but I do see it being a hell of a time because we also got to remember Wallin he's a southpaw, right? So what happened with Wallin is a southpaw. I'm not mistaken. Am I wrong?
Wallin's a southpaw. I think you're going to talk about other southpaws. Obviously, you draw a comparison to Usyk, but then also Charles Martin.
Right. Well, yeah, but let's not put Charles Martin in that area because Charles Martin's a different kind of fighter than what Usyk would. And I think Wallin has that tricky element to his game. You know what I mean? Not necessarily to the level of Usyk with it necessarily, but then he's a little bit bigger, but also tricky. Got some rangy things going on with him. You know, different pace. You know, he'll peck at you. He's the kind of guy that can frustrate the hell out of a guy like Joshua, and I can see that happen. And if I was going to pick a sleeper fight aside from the big baby fight with Dubois, I would pick this because I see he has the kind of style to really give Joshua serious trouble. But just like I said with Usyk, Joshua need not be on that I'm going to try to box him shit because I think that then plays into this guy's hands. I think he needs to go in with the idea of seek and destroy. Now being a little more careful, maybe behind the jab a little bit, but pressing, looking for meaningful shots. If it has to go rounds, he's going to have to land meaningful shots to get some of these rounds because I just don't think he's going to be able to necessarily outpunch him. You know what I mean? I don't think the pace of the fight, trying to raise the pace of the fight, you know what I mean? That's not Joshua's game. Joshua doesn't have, like the kind of stamina over the course of a fight to deal with a guy who's going to be a nagging kind of boxer. This is why if he fought Tyson, I think that's a terrible style matchup for him, Tyson Fury. So, but yeah, this is the kind of fight that will give him trouble. And, if I'm going to pick a sleeper, I'm going to pick this. I would pick Wallin decision. But we do know that we have that, and I know you said not to do this, but we have that signed Wilder fight to come up after this. And of course, both of those fighters are in tough, but most people want to see that fight. So if the fight's close at the end, you already know where it's going. But I would pick Wallin for decision.
Are we going as far as Wallin decision, or are we going just Wallin by any method, Eddie? I'm going to go any method.
Yeah, I'm going to say decision. Because I really believe. Yeah, I'm going to say decision, even though I don't think he's going to win the decision. But I still think. I think he would win the fight, but end up losing the war. You know what I'm saying? Or he would win the battle or whatever, but lose the war in a sense because the fight would not go his way. I just don't think it will. I know I've been around boxing. I've seen these types of things happen, and it's just unfortunate for him. He's in that scenario, but I think if he wins the fight, though, it will be by decision, in my opinion.
Okay, so we're both going Wallin. Well, while you were just talking there, Eddie, I've actually put together my parlay and your parlay, and I just want to read this to the listeners. Obviously, I'm not encouraging betting or telling people to go put this bet on and it's going to land. But if you want to go small, just on some of the picks that we've gone with, there's one bet that is in there. Frank Sanchez over 5.5 rounds. I'm not like overly confident in that one. That can be removed, to be honest, from myself and Eddie's ones. But anyway, with that included, we both agree, myself and Eddie, Hrgovic 1 to 4 rounds for the KO. Frank Sanchez over 5.5 rounds, which you can remove that if you want. Makhmudov by KO, Opetay by KO, and Wallin to win. I'm quite surprised, by the way, the amount of people online that think Joshua is going to win so easy, and I just really can't understand that. Anyway, we agree on those 5 things. The 3 things that we disagree on, I've gone with Dubois, and Eddie's gone with Big Baby Miller. I've gone Bivol knockout. Eddie's gone Bivol points. And I've gone the Wilder fight not to go the distance. Eddie's just gone straight for the Wilder KO. So mine is 47 to 1. Eddie's is 86 to 1. So that could be quite quite a big Christmas if they were to land. But just back to the Joshua thing, just really, really briefly. If he were to stop Wallin, it'd be a massive statement. We saw Wallin give Tyson Fury loads and loads of problems. To be totally honest with you, I've always said it. I think that if it wasn't Tyson Fury in that ring, the fight gets stopped on the cut. It was such a bad cut. That's the only loss he's got on his record. And, that was really he could have won that by stoppage just because of the cut, if we're being real about it. Anthony Joshua, like I say, if he goes in there and stops Wallin, it's a massive, massive statement. It's 7 years since he's got a stoppage in the first 6 rounds. I don't think he's going to get it in the first 6 rounds, and I don't think he's going to have the energy levels to get it later on in the fight, when I think Wallin will be too fresh at that point, because I think, like I say, he's got a better gas tank anyway. So I think it's going to be a really intriguing fight. That fight, that's the best, most intriguing fight of the night for me. It's interesting because I think me and you said, Eddie, off air, Wallin. We're picking Wallin, but we can see Joshua winning. And also the other one that you said you were a little bit like umming and ahhing about was Dubois and Miller. Like, they're not the most confident of ones, and I agree completely. I can see Miller beating Dubois. I would side with Dubois. You've gone with Miller. You I think can also see Dubois beating Miller as well. The Wallin and Joshua one again is a bit dicey as well. But other than that, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident Biv will get the stoppage. Biv will certainly win that fight. There's no way he loses. Wilder fight, I don't think we're going to see that go the distance, but you went a step further saying Wilder will get the KO. You're probably right there. Jai Opetaia to get the stoppage, I think that's a done deal. Makhmudov, that's interesting. Some people thinking Kabayel maybe has a chance just because Takam boxed quite well and probably beat Makhmudov. Makhmudov really blew his load early on in that fight though, and I think he's probably learnt from that. Frank Sanchez against Junior Farr, like I say, should be quite one-sided really for Frank Sanchez, providing he doesn't get caught with a big shot like he did last time, because if he gets caught with that shot, maybe Junior Farr can do something more than just buckle his legs. And Filip Hrgović really and truly should destroy Mark Demori quite early on, unfortunately. That is it for that card. There's one...
Yeah.
Sorry,
go
on.
One more thing, Joe. If there was one fight that I would take out of my parlay because I'm just not certain about it, aside from, the Miller fight we talk about, and even if I do make this and put this in, I think I might take that Joshua fight out of it. The only reason why is because even though I think it would happen the way I said, I'm so thinking about the actual decision.
Yeah.
I just can't. You know what I mean? I think it would mess up the parlay. I just really do. I really do. But that's all. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's just a bit of fun anyway. Right, getting on to the final 2 cards to mention. There's 2. Going to come to you first here, Eddie, just to finish this guy's name. It goes down at the Swamlum Night Bazaar in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm going to guess that's some kind of nightclub. We're going to see, Eddie. Please do this for the Christmas listeners. Wisaksa Wangek, a.k.a. Suresiket Sorung Vasai, a.k.a.
the Rat Eater.
Yes, you finally got it. 54-6 with a draw. And of course, he gets in with a guy called Kritifak Downgnut, who is 0-1. These are the fights we love to see. It's an absolute mismatch there on the 23rd of December. 6 rounds at bantamweight there. Cannot believe the fight's been sanctioned. And then finally, Boxing Day will be Boxing Day, because on Tuesday, the 26th of December, don't get too drunk on Christmas Day, because it's going to be an early one, especially in the States, in Japan at the Ariake Arena. It's going to be live on ESPN Plus. It's going to be live, I think, on Sky Sports. I'm hoping it's going to be on Sky Sports. It has to be. I think it is. Naoya Inoue, the king, 25-0. It's for all the belts at Super Bantamweight. IBF, WBA, WBC, WBO. He gets in with Marlon Tapales, 37-3, coming off that upset win, like we mentioned earlier on in the show, the upset win that he had last time out against Murajon Akhmadaliev, a split decision back in April this year. And Naoya Inoue obviously coming off that brilliant win last time out against Stephen Fulton. So Boxing Boxing Day is going to be really, really good. Sometimes it can be a bit of a come down after Christmas has ended, but I'm really looking forward to that one then. It's an early start, like I say, so I won't be drinking too much. I know you won't drink at all, Eddie, and my advice to the listeners, don't forget that fight's taking place. There's a lot of boxing on. The 23rd of December is the massive card in Saudi. 24th is Christmas Eve. 25th is Christmas. 26th is Boxing Day. And Inoue Tapales for the undisputed super bantamweight titles. And then that kind of brings the year to a close. Obviously, this is the Christmas special podcast here. We will have an end of year podcast, which will be coming on the 28th of December. So next week, that'll be the end of year special, by the way. So that's when we spend the podcast talking about the best knockouts and the best female fighter and the best fight of the year, the best prospect, all of that stuff. If you haven't already sent your entries in, then please send them in to me on Twitter at BoxHard_podcast or at ChampFastEddie, or on Instagram at FastEddieChambers or at BoxHard Podcast on there. I'm gonna come to you, Eddie, just with a final message, just wishing our listeners a Merry Christmas, and then I'll come back with the outro after that. But yeah, that's been the preview part wrapped up. We did the review part in part 1. We had our special guest, Mr. Jeff Horn, former world champion. We did the news, we did the preview part, we even gave you a nice chunky bet that will probably lose. But Eddie, sign out with a little message.
Oh, man, we just want to really, really thank the listeners, man. Your guys are the MVP in this. We appreciate you. It's been a great year. Looking forward to Christmas, and I know everybody else is. Hope y'all bought some nice gifts. You know what I mean? Hopefully some of them is, boxing gear, boxing stuff. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man. We just love y'all, and looking forward to a solid new year coming, and more BoxHard podcasts to come.
Absolutely, it doesn't stop. Well, there we go. That brings the preview part to a close. It's now time for me to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up this year's Christmas special BoxHard podcast. I hope you've all enjoyed listening. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge shout out to this week's special guest, the former WBO Welterweight World Champion, Mr. Jeff Horn. The biggest thanks, as always, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Don't forget to please send us in your nominees for the end of year podcast awards that we'll be doing next week, so there is not much time left to get those in. Please remember to send us them in, because we do need a few more to come in. That would be great. But yeah, that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, have a good one, and we'll see you all again next week.